In 1864, we saw the codification of Swiss businessman Henry Dunant's Geneva Convention, a treaty that would, in the decades to come, become a series of treaties outlining the rules and laws of war. We as humans understood that as brutal and gruesome as war could be, there were some tactics that should never be allowed, even on a battlefield. As the 1800s became the 1900s and the 1900s became the 2000s, one man's legacy as one of the biggest enemies, if not the biggest enemy to this righteous diplomacy, has remained. He's one of the most notorious and heinous war criminals to have ever lived. Across his existence on this earth, his legacy of suffering casts a longer shadow than almost anyone. I'm sure you already know who I'm talking about. He's a mustachioed European whose reign of terror across the East was often precipitated with the colour red. Yes, it's Mario. Mario the Iron Boot Mario has been stomping mushrooms and rebellions alike since 1985, aided and abetted by his war criminal wife, puppet ruler brother, and this fucking thing for some reason. He plays casual games of tennis with tyrants and secret police, and even has an uncanny body double frequently perform similarly egregious acts of violence in order to draw assassination attempts away from him. Fellow war reporter Brian David Gilbert has already touched on some of Mario's most visible flouting of the rules, but this is only scratching the surface of his foul deeds. Today on Hard Drive, we will attempt to report to you every time Mario has violated the Geneva Conventions. Emphasis on the word attempt here, as the history is longer and darker than a modern Batman movie. If you're so inclined, please do consider doing your part and filling us in on any examples of code breaching that we may miss in the comments section below. Let's start with an obvious one, and a double header at that. When Mario stomps on the head of a Koopa Trooper, it retreats into its shell, a typical defense mechanism for a turtle. Convention 1, Article 12. The wounded and sick shall not be murdered, exterminated, or subjected to torture or biological experiments. Additional Protocol 1, Article 41. A person who is recognized or who, in the circumstances, should be recognized to be out of combat shall not be made the object of an attack. Mario heartlessly goes on to stomp the shell of a Koopa Trooper, utterly exterminating them, but not before Additional Protocol 2, Article 4. Persons who do not take a part or who have ceased to take part in hostilities are entitled to respect. In all circumstances, they are to be treated humanely. Protocol 2 specifically prohibits violence to the life, health and physical or mental well-being of people. The surrendering, no doubt quivering physical body of a Koopa Trooper is not only frequently used as a weapon, but also sometimes spins out of control, destroying blocks and killing other creatures who have long since ceased being any kind of threat to Mario. This one act alone arguably breaks another 5 or so articles of the Geneva Conventions, and yet somehow this is still pedestrian compared to what's coming. Additional Protocol 1, Article 35. Use of weapons that cause superfluous injury or suffering, as well as means of warfare that cause widespread, long-term and severe damage to the natural environment are prohibited. This is a fire flower. This is the Koopa car. This is Dry Bowser. He has already been dumped into molten lava once. He is, quite literally, already dead, and then Mario elects to do it again. When Mario is behind in a race, he will turn himself into a speeding missile in order to reclaim first place, and let's not even get started on the blue shell. Oppenheimer could not have come up with the blue shell if Einstein had just banged his wife in the streets of Nagasaki. Additional Protocol 2, Articles 10, 11, 13, 14, and 16. Attacks are forbidden on civilians and on objects indispensable to civilian survival, such as crops, irrigation systems or drinking water sources, cultural objects, and places of worship. Here is Mario rampaging through the Mushroom Kingdom as an elephant, which, alongside almost everything just mentioned, could be considered an attack on a cultural object or place of worship. You are not Ganesha, Mario. Stamping out socialism was enough. Leave Hinduism alone. Mario's blood blood-soaked Odyssey from 2017 is a veritable tidal wave of war crimes and convention breaches. On top of violating practically every article brought up so far, this campaign also saw him breach Article 34 of Convention 4. Although retained personnel in a camp shall be subject to its internal discipline, they shall not, however, be required to perform any work outside their medical or religious duties. When he uses fascist general, weapon of mass destruction and sentient floating hat, Cappy, to take control of everything from Goombas to Hammer Bros to a literal T-Rex to suit his own purposes. I'm pretty sure punching himself in the face until he fucking died was not part of Nucletek's medical or religious duties. Unless the Aztecs were really weird. Taking control of the Mushroom Kingdom's equivalent of a Sherman tank and using it to open fire on its own sentient brethren alone should be enough to land Mario a cell next to a Somalian pirate in Guantanamo Bay, but he somehow manages to achieve the rare accolade of stacking violations on top of each other. And I ain't talking about no Goomba Tower. One of the earliest and most sacred conventions from 1925 strictly outlaws the use of chemical weapons, specifically asphyxiating, poisonous or other gases and bacteriological weapons. Cue this clip of Mario possessing a poisonous piranha plant and using it to spread even more poison across already polluted waters. This one act quite literally violates the last 3 laws I've brought up in this video, and that's without mentioning that Mario needs to force the piranha plant to eat a fucking rock before doing the capturing. It may not specifically be listed in the Geneva Conventions, but eating rocks cannot be ethical or healthy. Sorry, Cousin Simon. Mario's platforming adventures are filled with rule-breaking acts of disregard for life. Take for example all the times he's condemned Yoshi to the plot of 127 hours, Articles 12 and 18 of Convention 2. Parties in battle must take all measures to search for, collect and care for the wounded, sick and shipwrecked. Shipwrecked in this instance also referring to those forced to land or parachute from a damaged aircraft, but somehow it's the spin-offs like the RPGs and sports titles where things get even crazier. Additional Protocol 1, Article 77 states recruitment of children under aged 15 into the armed forces is forbidden, and yet 2009 saw Mario, after bending the laws of time, which I can't believe isn't prohibited by international humanitarian law, fight a literal army with babies. Baby versions of himself and his brother? If Mao Zedong could time travel, well, you thought his leap forward was great before, wait till he's got fucking Optimus Prime on his side. Of course, recruiting child soldiers wasn't enough. Here's Mario teaming up with his brother to drive a spinning drill into the head of 9-year-old Larry Cooper. Here they are teaming up to re-break all those articles of Additional Protocol 2 by burning sentient plant Petey Piranha alive with excessive force, no doubt singeing those fields and eliminating all potential for farming and agriculture in the process. And yes, Paper Mario also counts as Mario, so every time he gets in on the fun, he is also breaking the Geneva Conventions, which means we have double the breaches of conduct. So when Mario and Luigi fly Paper Mario like a spinning propeller to pilot some kind of device created to destroy all the piranha plants in sight, we are instead breaking at least 4 laws at a time. It could honestly be more, because, I mean, look at this. Honestly, what the hell is even happening here? Is this Italian technology or something? I seriously can't believe this is still going. The Pentagon are going to need to know about this. None of the conventions, as far as I could tell, specifically mention there being an age limit on who can be held responsible for disobeying them. This means that yes, Baby Mario, who is also Mario, is also breaking the Geneva Conventions. The bros moves in the Mario and Luigi games are basically a big war crime button, just a way of opening a list of things you can do that'll incite the condemnation of the UN. These could be their own separate video, but surely the most egregious has to be the shell-kicking ones. Here, the Mario Bros are using the shell of a Koopa who's either long dead or long surrendered, planting a child onto it and kicking it repeatedly to the point that it reaches insane speeds that surely endanger said child into an enemy who is asleep and surely poses no threat whatsoever. In the case that this is Baby Mario, which it can be, this footage just doesn't show it, this doubles the counts of laws being disobeyed. I would estimate that this single move alone with Baby Mario breaks the Geneva Conventions, wait for it, approximately 10 times. Not to be dramatic, but purely in terms of how many rules this is breaking, this is actually not far off the Holocaust. Take child soldiers out of the equation and the pernicious plumber still finds ways to disregard any manner of fairness in his RPG outings. Article 13 of Convention 3 declares that prisoners of war must be subject to humane treatment and are not to be subjected to violence, endangerment of health or retaliation. Tell that to Chained Kong in Super Mario RPG, who Mario takes no issue in walloping with his bare hands and then letting fellow tyrant Bowser finish him off. This was probably before he stuck the knife in with all that dry Bowser stuff. The very foundation of the Geneva Conventions are built upon the establishment of the Red Cross, the idea that every country should recognise and allow safe passage to medical experts who can patch soldiers up, regardless of which side they're fighting on. But when a Mediguy shows up to heal injured Shy Guys in Paper Mario, Mario stomps them all the same with no hesitation. He also recruits Goombario to his cause in the game, who is widely considered to be between the ages of 13 and 15, and in Thousand Year Door he gets a freshly hatched Yoshi to fight by his side. Yes, I'm still on the child soldier stuff. We've touched on Mario Kart, but whether it's negligence or tyranny, Mario has babies and children operating motor vehicles all over some of the most diabolical and dangerous racetracks ever devised. Much is often made of the Geneva Conventions having not been updated in about 80 years in the face of nuclear weaponry and burgeoning separatist governments, but if they were updated today, I think it's fair to say that they'd likely outlaw firing children out of a giant cannon into an active volcano. Thankfully, the baby characters took a game off in Mario Kart DS because God forbid you get them behind the wheel of a dry bomber. Convention 4, Article 3, military force may not be used against non-combatant civilians. Baby Park is also a violation of many facets of humanitarian law, but sadly too many for me to elaborate on right now. In the realm of sports, Mario has subjected football players to electrified fences, laser beams, stadiums in volcanic pits, and violated Articles 13 through 14, 16, 25 through 27, 30, 50, and 54 of the Third Convention in his treatment of the critters. I'll read out some excerpts from these various articles. Prisoners of war must be protected against acts of violence, insults, or public curiosity. Captors must not engage in any reprisals or discriminate on the basis of race, nationality, religious beliefs, political opinions, or other criteria. POWs must not be held in combat areas where they are exposed to fire, nor can they be used to shield areas from military operations. Yet, political prisoners, the critters, are exclusively relegated to the role of goalkeeper, forced to shield the goalpost from exceedingly dangerous and excessive maneuvers like Wario setting off a mini nuke in his large intestine and Mario's flaming balls, all very much in the interest of public entertainment. The only small mercy granted to these brave men is that they weren't brought back for Mario Strikers Battle League. Dodged a bullet there, guys. In Mario Tennis Aces, Mario participates in an impromptu tennis war, their words, not mine, and elects to invite droves of spectators to the event who are seemingly unaware that the fate of the entire Mushroom Kingdom is at stake in these matches, at serious risk of being destroyed by the spirit of an evil tennis racket who has canonically killed before civilian endangerment. He also uses destructive weaponry like bob-ombs, fireballs, and lightning bolts in simple games of baseball, and oh, look what else he can use, a POW ball. Wonder who manufactured those through illegal slave labour. On top of all the obvious violations, this is also in breach of Additional Protocol 1, Article 79, for endangering a journalist, as Lakitu is doubling up as the umpire in this game. And, you know, somehow we've gotten used to Mario bringing along fellow tyrant turned victim Bowser to all his sporting events, but inviting King Bob-omb to golf? I mean, there are conventions against using bombs, threatening bombs, hiding bombs, but getting a few holes in with them? Again, we need an update. He's running around near lava, Mario. He's gonna blow! Get Bowser Jr. out of there! He's 13! Oh, he doesn't care. Mario Party. Jesus Christ. This is a violation, this is a violation, this is a violation, this is not technically a violation, but it might as well be. This is a violation, this is a violation, this is a violation. Mario Party would honestly take a whole video of its own. You could replace the 4 characters in any given match of Mario Party with Fidel Castro, Benito Mussolini, Vlad the Impaler, and Homelander, and pretty much everything the characters are doing to each other would still be completely on brand. We don't have the time to cover everything Mario Party does to spit in the face of humanity humanitarian law. Someone else is going to have to handle that. For we are frankly running out of unique rules that Mario and co have broken over the years, but it should obviously go without saying that just about every law brought up in this video has been ignored on numerous occasions. In Mario Sunshine, Mario sends feral and toxic Gooper Blooper flying into the waters of Rico Harbor, at best introducing a hugely invasive species into the local ecosystem, which is probably in there somewhere, and at worst turning the water from Hawaii to Britain real quick. Mario has knowingly physically assaulted a journalist before when he laid his hands on Lakitu during his time as an underground fighter in the Glitz pit. No doubt Lakitu was ahead of the curve on Mario's numerous breaches of conduct and needed to be silenced. And the charges involving children and petty thievery are mountainous. Take for example when I, at age 15, was fooled into paying full price for Paper Mario Sticker Star. Much like his heroes Gaddafi and Saddam, it would be nigh on impossible for any one person to build a comprehensive list of every Geneva Convention Mario has violated. Still, I think we've done a pretty extensive job here and probably covered approximately 75% of his offences, though again, that's not counting Mario Party, and good luck to whoever decides to tackle that. Yes, the video title is technically incorrect. That's what YouTube is like now. File that under the conventions next time they get updated. Well, after we get this guy back behind bars. And tune in next time for a deep dive into every time Sonic the Hedgehog has disobeyed the 10 Commandments. Spoiler alert, he broke the wing off this helicopter and sent members of the armed forces plummeting to their explosive deaths on a Sunday.